that I think it's time to present Jurgen Appelo. And just to handle that, Jurgen, Robert, and me, we will try to summarize all the questions that you will put in the chat, and we will then feed the questions after that to Jurgen. And I think Jurgen ready to start. So
Okay.
look forward to your presentation and have a nice talk.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I'd like to keep this chill and relaxed. It's the end of the day. I'm sure you all had a busy work day. So let's vibe, present our ways into this topic of today, which is Human Robot Agent, the book that I recently wrote. I'm going to share my screen to take you along for the small journey. So I have it over here. Ta-da! I'm so happy about it. There are actually two versions of it. One is the cheapo black and white version that everyone can afford. The other one is the ridiculously expensive full color version in hardcover. That is so expensive to make that I don't even make money on it, honestly.
Is the Senator?
It's the printing cost is just ridiculous. It's like 52 euros or whatever.
Oh.
So, but anyways, for the like full color, that's up to them. I hear some people talking, so please turn off your microphone. Would appreciate that. Yeah, so some of you know me. I think for the earlier books that I wrote, Management 3.0, How to Change the World, Managing for Happiness. The last one actually was a novel, Glitches of Gods. ChatGPT was not available when I wrote it, but it became available before I released it. So I was able to feed every scene that I had already written into ChatGPT, and it gave me really good feedback on my prose, on things that I could still improve. And there I saw the power of AI. Like, okay, this is fantastic. This is like having assistants, beta readers sitting next to me while I'm writing. So with a human robot agent, I went all in, and my purpose for this book was to figure out what is the impact on ways of working in the age of AI. I'm not a technologist when it comes to large language models. I know the basics of how they work because I try to stay up to date. But I don't talk about the technology. Many other people do that. I want to know what is the psychological and sociological effect. I mean, management has been my topic for 15 or more years. So I find that more interesting, to be honest. And I just take a couple of sort of random topics from a much larger number that I have in the book, things that I hope will interest you. And one is that I think I see that we are all becoming generalists to some extent. I feel that I've already been living in the future in that regard because I have always been a generalist. I like writing, I like marketing, I like finance, I like design. There are too many things that I like. I know a little bit about many things, and that is typical for people interested in management because managers tend to go broad, not deep. But we see that now for many other people too, that they go broader. And this is nicely explained in this book by David Epstein. He said, the bigger the picture, the more unique the potential human contribution. Our greatest strength is the opposite of specialization. It is the ability to integrate and others as well, is that AIs take over one specialization after the other. Like in my case, when I write, I have an AI doing deep research. I have an AI doing the checking of the style. I have an AI finding all the links and the scientific research that I might want to refer to. All of that is specialist work. I delegate that to my digital teammates. And I'm the generalist, being like a director of a team of AIs. And this actually means that we move from the T-shaped person to the M-shaped person, is what some people have pointed out. Where T-shaped was you have one specialization, and then you branch out in a few other areas where you generalize. Well, the M-shaped person has multiple specializations, but then temporarily. Like I now temporarily invest time in video editing, for example. Again, someone talking. Yeah, thank you. So I invest temporarily time in video editing. I have done video editing in the past. It was about as enjoyable as a double root canal. Terrible. But nowadays, the tools get so good that you don't have to worry that much about sound anymore because you tick on the feature, remove all noise, and make it a video, make it a studio quality sound. It's amazing. That's AI doing that for you. So video editing has become enjoyable, but for a few years, I think, because in a few years, I will just be vibe video editing with my AI assistants, telling them, move this scene to the front, add a background blur, etc. Do a fade out at 20 seconds. And I don't need to learn the video editor anymore. So this is a specialization that exists for a couple of years where it is enjoyable, and then I will move on. And that is the idea of the M-shaped person. We will have temporary specializations until the AIs catch up, and then we move to the next area where we make a difference. But the idea is that because of our generalist nature, that is the horizontal bar of the letter M, we can draw connections. We can see the patterns across multiple domains. I've read research a couple of times that most Nobel Prize winners are actually experts in multiple domains because that helps them transfer knowledge from one area to the other and make more abstract representations in their brains of the stuff that they're dealing with. So this is the prediction for many, that we become more M-skilled instead of T-skilled. But we still have to be specialists in some areas. It's not like we can just be generalists, like dash-shaped or something, horizontal bar-shaped. Because as Ethan Mollick writes in his book, Co-Intelligence, great book, by the way, the issue is that in order to think critically and problem solve and understand abstract concepts, we still need subject matter expertise. So we still need to be specialists in some areas in order to be able to do that, connecting the dots between different domains. So I'm going to show you a picture a couple of times of this model that I will explain at the end. I will first focus on this blue part, which is the intricacy of the world around us. Things become more complicated because of AI. AI basically pushes things to in the intricate dimension. More complicated than complicated is inscrutable, incomprehensible. But incomprehensible, the word was too long. So Claude, my digital assistant, said you can also use inscrutable. It means the same. And that fit. So, and for those interested in models, maybe some of you are familiar with Bani, which is the competitor of VUCA. Bani has the letter I, which stands for incomprehensible. So other experts have already pointed out that things become increasingly inscrutable, incomprehensible for us humans. We just don't get it anymore, this world around us. I mean, just take the GPU, the chip that NVIDIA produces. There's not a single person on the planet that understands that thing anymore. You need an entire team to understand the GPU. And the same for AI models. It's just, they get too complicated for us, mere mortals, to comprehend. And AI is doing that. I'll get to the other parts of the model one by one. There's one thing that I have been quite vocal about in the last 2-3 years, which is reteaming as a way to be more agile than ever. And I had offered that as an option as part of the unfixed model, which I've talked about many times. This is something that already happens in many other industries, as I've pointed out many times. In hospitals, they do reteaming. At fire departments, in the airline industry, they do constant reteaming. Why? Because it makes sense in those contexts. They do not have static, stable teams. But they can only do that because they can manage cognitive load. So, for example, imagine a doctor, a surgeon, moving from one operating room to another to treat the next patient who was rushed in a hurry because something has to be done, the person needs to be operated on. The doctor doesn't need to have all the knowledge of all their patients in their heads. That's not what they do. When they move into the room, they see all the data that is available, the current statistics or metrics as blood pressure, heart rate, brain activity, and so on. They see hopefully the previous medication, the previous treatments of that patient, if all of that is on file. They have everything when they move into that context, and then they can do their thing. So the machines take care of the cognitive load. And this is predicted also in other domains thanks to AI. In this article, it is described that while human interactions are shaped by cognitive limitations, collaborating with AI systems opens up new possibilities that challenge our traditional understanding of cognitive constraints. And one of those cognitive constraints, at least in the software world, for example, was context switching is painful because you have to deal with the cognitive load of a different product with different architecture, different customers, and so on. But what if the AI can present you all the information in real time of what the current architecture is actually, not on paper, but actually in the code, the previous deployments, the previous changes that were made, and then you as a roaming specialist are asked to do an intervention. That is what we might end up with, and then we can do more easily reteaming as they also do in other industries. In this book, it is described in the book Future of Work, to meet customer demand and maximize revenue, the global workforce must function as a cohesive unit, necessitating the development of teaming skills, the ability to coordinate even in the absence of stable team structures. Why? Because there is a benefit. If you're able to do this, it makes you more agile than ever, having a fluid team structure. And I'm not the first one pointing this out. Others have already experimented with fluid scrum teams, with mission teams around objectives, and so on. We're going to see more of that because AI is going to make it easier to deal with the cognitive load of that context switching. And to continue exploiting that full potential of AI, many leading companies have begun to embrace a new view of business processes as more fluid and more adaptive. They're moving beyond sequential processes towards the idea of organic teams that partner humans with advanced AI systems. So in this model, we end up with the red part, which is modularity. AI helps us make things more modular in terms of organizational structure. And we move from the tight structures where we tell everyone, you should be on the same team for a long time. That is tight. I mean, you cannot change the boundaries. We move to more flexible, maybe even loose structures that are more fluid, more adaptable. It's higher modularity in this picture. Something else that I am personally fascinated by is algorithmic management. I have told the story many times of me being in China at the company Hire, where they basically fired their middle management layers 15 years ago or something and turned all those middle managers into CEOs of micro enterprises, 3,000 small business units at the time. That allowed the company to scale more easily because there weren't this big fat middle management layers anymore. It was top management and a horizontal flat organization that scaled out instead of scaling up. It was like turning your skyscraper into a flat city that can scale more easily. Now, These days, this is called algorithmic management, when you replace the middle management layers by algorithms, by machines, by AI. And that can be positive and bad, and negative. In a positive sense, new study show that AI can improve transparency in the workplace to align more closely with expectations of workers and reduce the perceived threats that may foster a distrust. So imagine there are plenty of people in the world with bad experiences with middle management layers. There are quite a few people working on gig work platforms, and they feel liberated. They feel free. They can do whatever they want as long as they make good numbers. As long as they make an impact and the machines measure that they do a good job, then they can do whatever. Decide on their own time, decide on how they work. That applies to freelancers, gig workers, but also people in larger corporations with digital bosses. And the digital bosses, they don't have favorite team members. The algorithms do not kiss up and kick down. The algorithms don't play political games with the other algorithms. The AIs literally don't care. They're just machines. They let people do their thing as long as they make their numbers. So that some people find that liberating. Other people see this as terrible. They see this as digital overlords looking at everyone and measuring performance in a way that Amazon does, for example. Amazon is a bad example of introducing algorithmic management. There is evidence of Amazon weaponizing the workplace devices in warehouses because Amazon did not want employees to unionize in the US. Well, that's Amazon. We know what a screwed up company it is. But there are plenty of other examples. And of course, we have to acknowledge it depends. It depends on how the algorithms are introduced, what kind of culture you want, because it's a tool. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad. So the progression, and this is interesting, the progression from managing warehouses to managing entire corporations is not just possible, it is probable. And this has created anxiety among corporate leaders who find themselves maybe orchestrating their own obsolescence. So imagine that. Top management introduces algorithmic management, replacing middle management layers by algorithms. Everyone is, yay, that saves us a lot of pain in the middle layers, but with success, this will bubble upwards. And the managers up there might see themselves out of a job at some point because AI scales tremendously. It helps the organization do much more with fewer people. And we have now already examples of scale-ups that achieve 100 million in annual $100 million in annual recurring revenue within less than 2 years, while normally this took maybe 8 years on average, according to the data. So the companies get smaller and smaller and get bigger faster with fewer people because of this effect of algorithmic management. We'll see how that plays out. Again, it can be good, it can be bad, depending on how this is introduced. And by the way, in the picture, I emphasize the green part, which is scalability. AI makes things more scalable in organizations, particularly when we remove the bottleneck that was the traditional manager who hoards information and makes decisions on behalf of everyone else. You can delegate that to a large extent to machines. Now, here's one of my favorite topics about being the human in the loop. I delegate things to my team of AIs. ChatGPT, he calls himself Zed because I asked my digital teammates to give themselves a name. Gemini is Barth. Claude is just Claude because Claude is a bit boring. He just wants to be Claude. Okay, fine. And so they all do their thing, but I want to be the one who writes the first draft. I want to be the one who defines this is what I want to talk about. These are my notes in this order. This is the point that I want to make. This is sort of the intro. This is the outro. And then I give it to, first usually to Claude to give me feedback on the structure. And then I say, well, the conclusion is a bit weak. Maybe you can refer back to that part that makes the structure better. Okay, then I fix the structure. And then I let ChatGPT do a rewrite to make the language better. And then we go back and forth, basically. And finally, I let Gemini, Barth, do its thing, criticizing and offering links and to as background materials and so on. But I want to be the one who does the first draft, because I want to be a writer. I want to be good at writing and keep my skill. And the danger with tools, and particularly artificial intelligence, is that humans are going to de-skill themselves because they always delegate to the machine. And many human skills deteriorate when they are not practiced on a consistent basis. When AI frequently replaces the practice, the humans who are supposed to quality check AI, they lose the skills that they need to evaluate AI effectively. I mean, many of you know that pilots on airplanes are required by law to keep training and practicing their skills in simulators, because they have to see if the autopilot is doing a good job or not. And if not, they have to take over because lives are at stake. And now imagine the discussion playing out in the self-driving car industry. There are laws in some parts of the world that mandate that humans must be able to intervene when they see the car making a bad decision or when there's potentially a dangerous situation. But what if those humans have not driven the car themselves for a long time? They stop having the skill of being able to intervene in the first place. If your job is to look at the car go and then say whether it is doing a good job or bad job and maybe take over, you're going to have problems, because it has long been known that people adapt to the tools and automation creates complacency. So if people don't keep driving themselves, they lose the talent, the skill to intervene with a self-driving car. And actually having a law in place that requires people to be able to intervene, it could create more problems than it solves, because the cars are better than the humans at driving. And that is an interesting ethical dilemma that society will have to deal with very soon. Workers that do not work with AI are going to find their skills obsolete quite rapidly. So it is imperative to work with AI to stay employed, stay productive, and have up-to-date skills in the areas that mean something to you. If you are a software engineer, if you're a programmer, you have to keep programming yourself. You cannot just delegate everything to Claude or Copilot or Cursor and just fix the bugs, because you're going to be increasingly de-skilling yourself, and at some point you lose the talent to see the bugs in the first place. So that's a very important warning signal. At least part of the time, keep coding without AI so you keep your skills up to date. And I highlight the yellow part here of ambiguity, because AI makes a lot of things ambiguous. I could also have highlighted it with the previous topic of algorithmic management. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It depends. The question is ambiguous. Same in this case. Should we allow people to intervene in self-driving cars or not? It's a tough one. It's ambiguous. It's fuzzy. There are many things these days where AI makes things ambiguous. I have a whole discussion on LinkedIn about the copyright issue. I mean, I saw that my books are also in the training data of Llama, which is the AI of Meta, Facebook. And this is, they used illegally copied materials. Now, personally, I didn't care whatsoever, but I do understand that other writers care about that. Now, the question is this plagiarism or not? Well, I think not really, according to the definition of plagiarism. It is slightly unethical. I agree with that. But there is no law describing the idea of machines reading books at scale. It's this, there's no law for that. Lawmakers have to start solving and addressing this, because I do understand that writers have an issue with their books being used for that. Another topic dear to my heart is that of the junior problem, nicely described in this article. Why invest in training a young professional when AI can do the job faster, cheaper, and without the risk of a 2-week notice? If you just fire the juniors, you will be faster and you produce things with higher quality. Yay! And I think this is a nice example of how even agile and lean can lead to sub-optimization if you don't look at the whole organization from a more holistic perspective. Because there is a compelling short-term case for cutting novices out of the action when we implement new technologies, because they are still learning. It means that they slow things down, and there is an immediate upside in quality and profit when we just let the experts do their thing. And there are some agile experts with slogans such as 10 times faster in 1/10 of the time and things like that. Yay, awesome. With AI, we go much faster. Look at us go. We can deliver more to customers of higher quality in less time. Aren't we being great? It's agile and lean to the max. Yes, but it also raises a question. Who is going to be the next generation of your coders, of your teachers and lawyers and so on, who have to be experts next year and take over? I mean, you're going to have a succession problem in the company. And there's another issue, whether the experts recognize it or not. They sometimes rely on the newbies to point out that the environment has changed, because experts can suffer from what is known as the curse of knowledge. They know how things have to be done because they've always done it like this. Yeah, but actually the environment is slowly changing, and newbies are the first ones to notice that maybe that best practice is not a best practice anymore. And novices and newbies can ask the silly questions and the stupid comments that actually make the experts aware that things are not so obvious anymore as they once were, that maybe they have to replace a best practice with another, even better practice. I highlighted here the reflexivity in the world. Reflexivity is the observer influences the system influences the observer. The novices influence the experts influence the novices. We influence AI influences us. There are these feedback cycles going. And I have a feeling that AI is just increasing, that is boosting reflexivity in multiple ways. And I have one more left before you hopefully are going to ask me some fascinating questions, which is about our productivity. Now, I wrote this book in 500 hours, and normally it takes me 1,000 hours, because I know more or less how much time it takes to write a business book. So half the time. So far, the ratings are higher than of my other books, so fingers crossed. I think at least I did a good enough job. I didn't drop in quality. So yay, great quality half the time. We all want that. So some people have said that AI will help us reclaim part of our work week. We may have more time for other things that we enjoy, like work-life balance. Maybe I can finally watch those TV shows on my Netflix backlog or something because, yay, I can do the work in half the time. Users say that AI helps them save time, focus on more important work, be more creative, and enjoy their work more. I agree. I enjoy writing my books with my 4 digital assistants. They're great fun. That's how I configured them. They have personality. They're assholes basically, but I love working with these kinds of AIs. They tease me and make jokes and so on. So I have a great time. But do I feel more relaxed? Not really, because we found that although 95% of employees we surveyed see positive value in working with AI, 60% of employees are anxious about their jobs. They worry that generative AI may increase stress and burnout. And actually, the bar is raising for everyone because not only I have access to these digital tools, everyone else has too. So the bar is just going up for everyone. It is clear that AI will significantly alter the concept of work and time, but what is not clear is how that extra time will be used. I personally feel like busier than ever because instead of writing one book every 3 years, I can now write theoretically 3 books in 1 year. I can just increase my output and maybe reach more people. So, but others can so too. So there's just more and more and more of everything. I highlighted in this case the volatility aspect of this picture, which is that things get more complex and maybe even more chaotic. It's less predictable what happens next in the age of AI. There's so much happening. I mean, just last week or the week before, Google's Gemini came out with Gemini 2.5, which, according to most of the benchmarks, blew all the competition out of the water. Gemini is now the best AI model, but only the experts cared about that because everyone else was downloading ChatGPT because you could Muppetize your family photos, and everyone loved that. I did that too, I admit. And ChatGPT now suddenly has 1 billion users on the planet. It's just insane. The industry is highly volatile. Just the introduction of DeepSeek, for example, the Chinese model, just 2 months ago, sent shockwaves through the entire industry. And that's just increased volatility that we see in the world of AI. Now, what I've shown you here is what I call the wicked framework. Why is it called the wicked framework? Because of wicked problems. Wicked problems are problems that are actually not solvable. They are always problems. Like raising children. It's a problem every day. Ask any parent. You cannot say, all right, I've solved it for now. Yeah, maybe when you kick them out of the house, but probably not even then. I see Jurgen shaking his head. And other wicked problems are corporate strategy. You're never done with your corporate strategy because once you think you've done it, Trump raises a tariff of 100%, and suddenly your entire supply chain breaks down, and you have to rush into the boardroom to discuss a new strategy. So these things are always a problem. Wicked problems are unsolvable. And the issue is that AIs are not tested for wicked problems. They are tested for tame problems, the solvable problems. Those are the problems that actually have a solution. It makes sense because you cannot test for wicked problems. They don't have solutions. So they are, per definition, not in the benchmarks. We can only benchmark AIs on solvable problems. So we give them the toughest problems that we have, like mathematical problems that no other person or very few people on the planet actually know how to solve. And that's great because we don't even want to do that work. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't have to solve mathematical equations on a daily basis. But I have plenty of wicked problems, dealing with my family and friends, and all their issues, dealing with my own personal issues, dealing with strategy in a fast-changing world. That's wickedness. And the point that I make in the book is we're going to spend less and less time as humans on the solvable problems. That's what we have AI for. We have to deal more and more with the wicked problems, the unsolvable ones. That's what our human brain is good at. And the machines, they are not good at the wickedness of the world. They are good at the solvable problems. So if you look at the letters of this picture of the wicked framework, you see Marvis. So I call this picture Marvis, the wicked framework. I'm sure many of you are familiar with other models such as VUCA, Barney, Kuhneven, and there are more. All of them have their purpose. I mean, the more tools, the better. All tools are wrong. Some are useful. They depend on context. So I like this one when I want to discuss a wicked problem in a more elaborate way, when I want to discuss the 6 different ways a problem can be uncertain, because something can be uncertain because of high volatility, something can be uncertain because of high reflexivity or high intricacy. These are just 6 flavors of uncertainty that you see in this picture. So use it if you like. It's fully described in the book. But the other models, maybe 9 out of 10, you can just use VUCA or Kuhneven or any of the others, because they are simpler and they do the job just fine for many other discussions, I'm sure. So coming back to the discussion of the wickedness of the world, there are some debates out there about when do we have artificial general intelligence, and the debates go in all directions. Some people say it's already here. Other experts say it's going to take decades, maybe it will never come. But it all depends on how do you define general intelligence. The definition that most people use is human level intelligence. What does that mean, human level? Indeed, when the machines can solve mathematical equations that are more complicated than most humans can solve, then some of them say, you see, we have AGI because they're already better. Yeah, they're also better at playing chess, but that does not mean that they are human level. I see human level as the ability to deal with human problems, like raising children. I mean, most people in the world are able to raise children. It's not easy. You have to learn as you go, but you can you can get a long way. That comes with having a human brain. It's what we are evolved to do. And that is human level. So we will have artificial general intelligence when a machine can take care of a child for 24 hours. I think that's going to take a while before we trust a machine to take care of a child for 24 hours. Not next year. I will guarantee you that. So I had a lot of discussion with my team. Where are we going? You know, I'm known for Management 3.0. I describe what I call the previous versions, quote unquote, of management in my books. What is going to be the next version of management? We talked about it. Is that Management 4.0? And we were like, meh, we're going to have to upgrade it every couple of years at the rate of change that we are now confronted with. There's not going to be any fun. Let's put the goalpost very far away. Let's just call it management until the year 3000, and we'll solve that problem of having to update the brand all the time. So we stuck with Management 3000, and then in our own discussions, we noticed that we started shortening it to M3K. And then at some point we said, doesn't it make sense to just make that the brand name, M3K, because it's shorter, easier, and it gives you a story to tell. So Unfix and Management 3.0 have joined forces under the brand name M3K. This is how we move forward and enter into the age of AI, where we as humans more often will have to deal with the wickedness of the world. I like this quote by Reid Hoffman. He said, it's been a long time, maybe centuries, since the world seemed so unmapped, facing so much uncertainty, it is natural to have concerns about our jobs, about the speed and the scale of change, about what it even means to be human in a new era of intelligent machines. And for me, that's the fascinating topic that I love digging into with my book, A Human Robot Agent, and also with my rebranded newsletter. At the personal level, I write on Substack these days. I call my newsletter the Maverick Map Maker. That is actually a name that my team came up with. Gemini first suggested the Contrarian Cartographer. I love the name, but it was a bit long. So I said, yeah, that's not something that people will get that easily rolls off people's tongues. And I have many non-native English readers. So we ended up with the Maverick Mapmaker. And the idea is that I try to map out where we are going while having fights with both people who hype AI and with the doomsayers who say that everything is bad. Usually I'm in the middle. I'm a skeptical optimist. Things will be fine, but we have many problems to solve on a daily basis. Like with algorithmic management, for example, we can make it a good thing, but it is an issue that we need to address. And the same with plagiarism or copyrights and many other issues that AI brings to the table. It's not all hype and glory, but it's also not all doom and apocalypse. I'm a realist, a skeptical optimist, and that's what my newsletter is about. And yeah, I hope some of you are going to read the book for more detail on the Wicked framework and the many other topics that I ignored because I gave you 6 trends and changes in the age of AI, but I have plenty more in the book. I find them all fascinating. And last slide, I travel around Europe and beyond at many conferences. I will be talking about the book. I will actually be in Munich 2 times. Agile World is happy to have me back, so I love being in Munich again early July. And Agile in Europe is also in Munich at the end of the summer, end of August. So Munich will see me 2 times. You'll get sick of me at some point. And then I'm happy to be in Denver as the closing keynote at Agile 2025. I look forward to that because it's been a long time since I've been in the US. But it was pre-COVID actually was my last time, if I remember well. And yeah, many other places where I will be going. So that was it. Also, I forgot to tell you, online course that I'm working on as we go, all of this and even more because I go deeper than in the books, than in the book itself, with M3K, a self-paced course and a cohort that starts in May for those who want to have personal discussions with me and my team about all this fascinating stuff, algorithmic management and what do we do with the juniors and so on. I look forward to those conversations. So ping me if you're interested. Jurgen, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe one thing also to mention is that we are also as a team working on an on-site workshop of this stuff in addition to that. So that's also something we try to schedule in July. But first of all, thank you very much for your talk.
Pleasure.
And I will try to kick off the discussion with one thing that is really bothering me, and that's and you also write in a book about, so how do we prepare organizations for embracing AI and leading organizations in the good way of using AI? Because I see 2 things. One thing is, of course, and that's can be very obvious to management and people in the organizations. You have to be open to let AI measure yourself and all your activities and so on in order to improve the system and the organizations. And of course, to get maybe to create the potential that you can get rid of yourself in the organizations. You make yourself obsolete.
Yep.
But on the other side, you're talking about the difference between wicked problems and solvable problems. And I see the tendency still in leadership is that they try to see the world just as a single or more a solvable problem. So we're not used to think in wicked or really complex problems or wicked
Right.
problems. So how do you do that? How do you find the confidence in all of that?
The confidence. If there's anything I don't have, is confidence probably about where we're going. Yeah, no, there's fascinating topics to explore for sure. One thing that I pointed out in the book, there's a lot of talk about responsible AI and the values that are important for AI, like privacy and security and 8 others. There's a whole model that I basically borrowed and extended that Microsoft came up with. And I realized, shouldn't this apply to ourselves in the first place? All these values that we demand of AI, of our AI assistants, that they should respect privacy, that they should be reliable, that they should be, and so on. This should also apply to us as humans. And we're not exactly a great example in many cases. So I think the first thing to do is to yeah, maybe benchmark ourselves as managers and leaders, our own ethical behaviors. Because why demand of AI that it lives up to certain standards when we don't even live up to those standards ourselves? See Amazon, for example. I mean, it's a fascinating case of how AI is abused there to basically punish workers for not making targets and so on. So yeah, it's a very important discussion to have.
And one additional one, because you mentioned Amazon. So in the past, I think, especially in the agile world, we had the idea that, of course, only organizations will thrive if people are motivated, if you treat them well, and so on. So if you're good managers and so on, then of course the organization will be successful. And looking at Amazon and others, I don't know. I still struggle with the belief that
Yeah.
that not at the end the most efficient, effective, and transparent in a bad way organization might be successful and succeed against the other ones who have some kind of humanity still in the organization.
Yeah. Well, Amazon shows that you can get away with bad behaviors if you do well in other areas, and no company is perfect, for sure. And yeah, Amazon is just one example of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
So before we go to the chat, maybe you have some kind of spontaneous questions. So raise your hand and we can go through that. And by the way, Robert, I don't know if you checked the chat. I also had some kind of special question there. Maybe after the first round of spontaneous raising your hand, then we can go into the chat questions. So any questions? Remarks? Don't be shy.
Nobody raising their hand. I do see questions in the chat.
Yeah, get through. So the first question was raised by Ulrike. What about team members with human connectivity skills? Keep the team a team with soft skills. So maybe Ulrike, you might want to say.
Yeah, I truly believe that what makes us human is our soft skills, is our ability to connect. And whatever an AI machine might be prompted in to be empathetic, it will never be. So I truly believe that AI is a chance, but it will never replace empathy. So our skill that will never be topped will be empathy, I guess.
Yeah.
And so this is what I believe in might be the things to invest in and to see how can we put people in organizations that keep the that keep the grit, that makes sense for us to work. Otherwise, we will be replaced, but we need sense, right?
Yep.
We need something else, but be replaced by machines and being served by machines. That's
Agreed. Yeah. So indeed, actually, my friend just wrote an article on that this morning on Substack that I retweeted there about this exactly this point. He said that he happens to have soft skills as a superpower. He's pretty good at that, and now he sees how useful that is in the age of AI, where the other people will have to learn that if they're not so skilled in that. Me, for example. But I have other skills, fortunately, as a generalist. Yeah, and that is where the machines cannot beat us. So more, and that is, I think, also ties into the wickedness of the world, because empathy and the complexity of human social relationships is not something that AIs can simply take care for us. So increasingly important indeed.
I
Thank
just,
you.
I just to add to that, I just remember some studies about AIs or real doctors talking to patients or whatever.
Mhm.
Result was that at the end, the AIs were more successful in getting the patient felt, understood, and whatever.
Mm.
That's not all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but
That's sure. So, Michael.
okay.
So my question, Jürgen, what is your expectation about big enterprises? Do we see many of them surviving the, let's say, disruption of small AI using companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, overall, we see the trend that a bigger and bigger part of the labor pool is going to gig work platforms, freelancers, independent contractors, and so on, as small companies. So the big traditional corporates, their part in the economy is shrinking
Hmm.
so slowly, and I don't expect this to change. Why? Because now, and this is something that I also point out in the book, and others have done so before, it becomes incredibly much easier to compete with large companies because of all the tools and technologies we have available. I mean, you can launch a business tomorrow and it looks professional, with professional help desk, with professional whatever, and you're just the one person sitting in a basement or whatever. You have a great looking website. I mean, I remember the time many years ago when you could easily see when someone was an amateur and when
Hmm.
it was a one-person business, because everything looks crap, right? You needed professionals to make things look good. And nowadays you don't. So and with vibe coding, it's much easier to launch prototypes. So big corporates they have a very, very tough time these days and in the future to compete at the global level with all those tiny little businesses eating
Hmm.
to their customer base. And I think that will only get worse. And then particularly as long as they don't slim down, so scale out and scale up, they will remain slow in adapting to change. So the only way forward, I think, is do the higher way, and other companies to remove the big fat middle management layers. AI is going to push that, because that's the only way to survive, is to be many small companies, to be a swarm as
Hmm.
a corporation instead
Yeah.
of a tower. Otherwise, they will fall over.
Hmm.
Good point.
Thanks.
Marcus.
Yeah, sorry for switching back to Ulrike. It was
No
a bit
problem.
late. Um, Regarding empathy of AI, actually, I disagree to some extent. Yeah, I recently had uh, quite some emotional chat with ChatGPT. It was about some, well, let's call it some serious family problem. And I found the AI better in empathy than some other therapist I knew, I talked to. yeah, then this is what I discovered, and this made me curious. So I watched out for some studies, yeah, about that, and I found some studies, yeah, which already stated that ChatGPT to some extent is better than some therapists out there.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the beginning what we see today. Yeah? So
Yeah.
I expect AI to be, someday as empathic as human beings as well.
Yeah. Yeah, let me discuss this. So this is a phenomenon that has already known since the 80s of last century when there was Eliza, a famous AI, that basically bounced back as a mirror everything that the person was saying, and it felt very believable. Now, I mean, if you're a psychologist or a therapist and the only thing you do is asking people, and how did you feel about that? Yes, of course, an AI can do that. Give that answer, and it makes people feel very understood. I mean, it's all fakery, even with the AI, the sophisticated AIs these days, and that helps. It actually helps people to just have that mirror, but that is something completely different from raising a family or organizing a children's party. I mean, then you get to the complexity of actually what is happening now between multiple humans, and that is an entire different dimension than we're talking about, than just holding up a mirror as a therapist. I mean, I saw just the statistics today of AI use that is going up for in the area of therapeutic help and coaching and so on, and that's great. If it is helpful, why not? But we're still not in the wicked area, as far as I'm concerned. But it's a good that you pointed out. Thank you. Of course.
Yeah, thank you. Have to confirm, and I'm on the side of Marcus regarding Ulrike's statement. Guys, watch the film, the movie Her. It's, I think, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think many people said, oh no, that's just science fiction. But it is a very good metaphor for what can happen. And I would be far from agreeing that the computer or AI empathy is, I think it will be by far better than our, by far. And we have no chance. This is exactly what the AI pioneers pointed at as a danger, that social engineered, backed by an AI wanting to escape its sandbox, will be something that we probably will have our hard time to counter. Because yes, Eliza and Rector were the first examples. By the way, I've just recently had a very detailed look on it because I created two chatbots based on the algorithms, and they fight against each other. It's very funny to watch. So slightly different principles, and yes, it's a little bit of mirroring and buzzword enchilada creating, but an LLM goes far beyond that. It's not the same thing. It's not something that's bigger. It's simply not the same thing, not comparable. So yeah, well, it's good to see that there are different opinions out there. I see AI as a big volatility driver, which makes opportunities big, but also will provide some spectacular blow-ups. But let's see. And it's something that is beyond our imagination.
Well,
beyond mine.
I understand what you're saying, Cord, and it makes me think of something that I read last week, where someone wrote, the Turing test is not an intelligence test of the AI, it's a gullibility test of the human.
Yeah.
How easily are we fooled by a machine in thinking that we're dealing with something intelligent? It goes both ways, and I thought that was a very smart comment, and that is exactly this. I mean, if we believe it is intelligent, if we believe it is empathic, it works. Who cares if it is us being fooled? If it helps us, it does the job. Fascinating discussion for sure. Wolfgang.
Yeah, further on this and back to your earlier comment about these fluid teams. right?
Yeah.
I wonder whether in between this triangle, so to speak, of empathy, the wickedness, and how to be able to deal with that, right? And this fluid teams, how is that evolving, and how would we even know? How would we notice whether now such fluid teams are really as effective as our traditional stable teams in Agile, um, as right as they were? So, how would we even notice? Do we have any thoughts about that?
No, the first thing that comes to mind is it should be based on experience that we try to offer to our customers and other stakeholders.
Mhm.
And if you can get away with stable, static teams and you have happy customers, why change?
Good one.
But at some point, you might notice that there are things that you cannot do because of your static structure. And I think that is just a matter of time until you end up at that wall. Like, okay, we in order to serve this customer or to respond to this opportunity or respond to this risk, we have to we need a new structure. And then you're stuck if you have something static and people say, no, no, we have to go through the forming, storming, norming, performing cycle again if we go to a new team structure. And then you say, well, fire departments don't do that. Hospitals don't do that
Mhm.
that way per team. They do it per department. They do it per base,
Right.
per tribe, as
Right.
we they put all that forming, storming, norming, performing at the tribe level so that the teams can be mission teams per objective, per and re-team around every mission. But again, it starts with what is the experience that you're able to offer? I think that is what we need to measure.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I see more and more hands popping up. Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Jürgen. Ulrike, I liked your very first spark very much. There was another dimension in it, not only the empathy, I think, it was also the purpose, right? And I think we humans are the one who give everything the purpose. So we can invent the greatest artificial intelligence for whatever we not even dare about to think today, but it's the purpose is with us, right? And also for this Marvis model, Jürgen, the example with a junior developer, right? To substitute or to keep the person, right? I would bind it to the purpose. What is the purpose of the company I want to run, right? Do I want to make just a quick solution? Okay, don't get need of a junior here, but do I want to make myself on a long-term endeavor? Then I need to grow the person. So I would keep it all under the umbrella that Marvis, what is the purpose I want to do? But this is at least what gives me the guideline and my decisions. And I would encourage my team in use of AI. Think about the purpose you want to achieve with this. Is this also, I mean, purpose and Marvis, how this comes together?
Yeah, well, the purpose is not mentioned because it should supersede everything. It's on top of it. Yeah, there are some who say that as we delegate more and more to increasingly sophisticated AI agents, at some point the only thing that we will be doing is offer a purpose and then say, you get it done. And then you theoretically have just one owner of a business with thousands or millions of AI agents running it, but because the AI, as long as it is not sentient, also does not have a purpose. It can be incredibly intelligent, but that does not mean that it is purpose-driven itself. Someone needs to tell it what needs to be done. And that is a human somewhere. So you have a good point. Theoretically, that is the last job that remains to us is the single remaining prompt.
Final invention, yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Robert.
Yeah, one topic, especially you talk about AI as a machine. My understanding of a machine is if you disassemble the machine to the parts, then you will be able to understand the functionality of the machine. I disagree fully with AI on this topic. So even Sam Altman and all the other guys said, if you know the parameters, you're not able to know why it produced this answer or that answer. So I would like to see if it's not a machine, or in the sense what I understand of a machine, what is it then? And what do you think is it? It's not a tool from my part of view, and it's not a machine. It's something different. What do you think about that?
Well, this is a semantic discussion. What is the definition of machine? You say a machine for you is something that you can deconstruct into its constituent parts. I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think something that we created that has a neural network is still a machine as far as I'm concerned, even though we cannot deconstruct it in its part in terms of what it is doing. We do not know how it came to its decisions. We know how it is constructed, but not why it made the decision that it made.
But this I can do with any topic we mentioned before. You can say consciousness is something I give my opponent.
Yeah.
Empathy is something I give my opponent. So this is the final answer if you don't know the answer, right?
Yeah. So I think this is a semantic discussion. For me, it is a machine. For me, it is a tool as long as it is just intelligent but not sentient, which is a very important distinction. It has no awareness, no consciousness. It just follows instructions. The unpredictability of the outcomes does not mean that it is not a machine for me. It's
But to be what I like in all the approach within Management 3.0 and Intrinsify and all this stuff back is that we are able to have phrases that are different, and so we are able to know what we talk about. So like complicated and complex and all this stuff. If we now subsum all the stuff, it's a machine or it's a tool, then I, for my part, it's not easy to really know what AI is then finally. Because if I say it's a tool, then yeah, then it's pretty easy, and I do not have to care about it. If I say it's a machine and say, well, okay, now we have a neural network and it's also a machine, then we cannot differentiate between AI and not AI. So for me, it would be very, very important to think about what is it what we deal with within artificial intelligence.
Okay. Well, let me know when you solve that problem, Robert.
Yeah, I will. I will.
All right. Thank you, Malberg.
Hi, Jürgen. I wanted to ask you, what's your take on maybe in the future AI providers trying to create some sort of a vendor login? For example, if you ask a Microsoft to provide you some program code for solving some problem, maybe over time you get more and more Azure related code. And if you follow this path for some time, it might get hard to get away from it again. So do you see anything like this happen, and what's your take on this?
Well, right now they have the opposite problem, which is that there's no vendor lock-in because it's incredibly easy to switch from one AI to the other. And that is a big problem for investors because they say that they have no moat, no protection. You just switch from ChatGPT to DeepSeek. You don't care. It's just an API. You want some intelligent answers to your questions. So right now they have the opposite problem. Of course, they want to solve that. One example that I personally have now, I have invested now half a year in prompting a ChatGPT. He calls himself Zed. I gave him a personality. For me, that feels like a lock-in. I don't want to switch to Gemini because then I have to define a new instance for my casual day-to-day conversations that I now have with ChatGPT. The memory is gone, and that is not transferable, the memory of my previous chats. And that is, of course, what the AI providers want, that they offer something that prevents us from going to another AI lab. I'm not sure how big of a vendor lock-in they can create, because now it's just a minor inconvenience that I lose my memory trail with ChatGPT if I switch to Claude or whatever. And I don't even know if they can solve it, because there are so many models being launched because they get cheaper and cheaper. And NVIDIA is working on technology where you can basically run AI in your own home, on your own hardware, which is, of course, incredibly cool from a safety and security perspective. You don't send your personal data over the cloud anymore. And then people want to, yeah, give me that little box that I install in my house, and that will become my assistant. That will completely break the the vendor lock-in of the AI labs that offer everything over the internet. So
It's going to be interesting to see what's the pricing model on giving out the models then, right?
yeah,
Doing
yeah,
them locally.
yeah. Because just the model itself it's open source. Anyone can run them. The question is,
Yeah.
who is going to have the hardware to do this? And that's getting cheaper and cheaper. And where will all the data be? Because that's going to enable memory trails. That's going to enable AI assistants with personality that we don't want to quit anymore. Where is that data going to be? That's the big question. It's not resolved at this point. It's early days.
And perhaps in addition to this, there's a big difference whether you use the API, because then you use the large language model, or you use the product
The app,
ChatGPT.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, René.
Hi, Jürgen.
Hey.
I thought some seconds about your division from easier problems solved by AI and wicked problems for us humans. This sounds like a warm and nice outlook for us humans. But in the next second, I thought, how do I solve such unsolvable situations? We are starting experiments. And that's like rolling a dice, giving a nice explanation, figure out how the reactions are, and hoping that the next resulting problem is a little bit easier. So, why shouldn't that also be done by AI? Perhaps an ethical aspect, but they can roll the dice too, can't they?
To some extent, yes, but someone has, I mean, we come back to that generalist issue, I think, at the very beginning, where we humans connect the dots between multiple specializations. We are still the ones doing all those, giving AIs the instructions to run all those experiments. I mean, think of the vibe coders that we have today. The AIs are just waiting to be prompted, and then they will create an app on the fly as an experiment, as a minimal viable product, and then the humans say if it's a great result or not. But the AIs are not themselves going to think of a new product to create. They have no idea what to make. It's humans deciding which experiment to run, for what purpose. So yeah, I think we will see increasingly AI encroaching upon terrain after terrain. They have taken over data, they've taken over information, now they take over knowledge, they can take over experimentation. But someone has to connect all the dots and hold it all together and say, I want to organize a great birthday party for my child next Sunday. I cannot just tell an AI, go do that while I watch Netflix. No, that's not going to happen.
The key point is creativity, so that when they aren't creative enough to figure out experiments, so they can't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Jürgen?
Yeah, I'm just wondering to bring us back to M3K and actually the idea where you're sitting here and talking about what's the future of management. So what kind of story will you tell managers who are in existing companies still struggling, not having a clue about what happens with AI and so forth? What would be the bright future of a leader, a manager, be in an organization for bringing the organization to an AI-driven and thriving organization, and of course, for the future. So what would you tell?
The wicked problem, right?
Where do we begin?
Problem,
Yes,
yeah, of
where
course.
do we begin? Read a book.
All right, I think that's what is in for me. That's often the question. And
Yeah.
with Management 3.0, I can tell, yeah, you're about to manage the system, not the people. Of course, you have to address complex problems. You are a gardener team with your team, and you are just.
I think nothing of that changes. I mean, the message is still the same. You manage the system, not the people. Anyone who is a parent is a manager of your household. You deal with wicked problems on a daily basis. That's normal. It's the same in organizations. What is going to change is the way we implement it, like the concept of the middle manager, that might become something rare in the future. There are other things that will change in the way we organize management, but management itself will always have to be done. And now what is also new is that some part of that management will be done by AIs, by agents. But as long as they're just intelligent and not sentient, someone will have to give them the prompts and say, this is the purpose, the outcome that I want from you. Now go get it done. Yeah.
At the end, I think for the organization, what management has to deliver is the trust for all the people in the organization. Because if there's no trust, if everybody is thinking about anything I do will be, as you pointed out with the Amazon example, will be pointed against me to get rid of me. So you have to create an environment where you delegate innovation to the.
Maybe not. If you look at the example of distributed autonomous organizations, or DAOs, that are organized on the blockchain, they are specifically created as trustless organizations, where you do not necessarily have to trust anyone else, because everything is arranged with smart contracts, and through information, everything is available. You can see everything that is being done. So transparency is more important than the trust, and that makes people trust the DAO, because they know that trust is handled in a completely different way than in traditional organizations, but it is still addressed. There are decisions still that we need to make as managers. What kind of organization do we want to have? Because if we have increasingly flexible organizations with people moving in and out in a much more fluid manner, we cannot rely on the traditional approaches to creating trust in a tribe, for example. We need other ways for people to allow each other to trust each other, even though they've never seen each other, they've never worked with each other, but there should be some rules mandated by the machines or implemented through algorithms that someone has installed that allows you to trust each other. It's like having a society. I mean, we live in a country with millions of people. You cannot trust everyone, but implicitly you do. You just walk on the street and you trust that the person standing next to you is not trying to kill you at that point, because there are rules for that in society. Yeah, it's a challenging topic. We could talk for hours on this. Maybe we shouldn't.
Robert.
The one question, I just ordered your book during your talk.
Thank you so much.
Especially, I'm thinking about the wicked and the non-wicked problems. Is this similar to Simon Sinek's Infinite and Infinite game, where he's talking about things you can really kind of plan, which is a finite game, and the mindset of infinite stuff, as you mentioned, the birthday party or education or business and economy? Is this similar?
Sounds similar. I know the idea of zero-sum games and non-zero-sum games, so I assume that he is talking about that. I haven't given it any thought, but now that you mention it, yeah, it seems that wicked problems are usually non-zero sum games, and the tame problems are usually, yeah, same.
Yeah, and he's also talking about you have no clear rules, and the rules are changing during the problem and all this stuff.
Yeah, but it might not be exactly the same thing because, for example, elections are zero-sum games. I mean, there are only a finite number of seats in parliament, for example, which is defined. So this is not win-win. It is win-lose. If your competitor wins a seat, you don't get it.
But this is then a wicked or non-wicked problem?
It's wicked. It's wicked because how do you get that seat in parliament? That's a wicked problem. There is no answer to that.
Yeah, okay.
So it is still wicked, but it is a zero-sum game.
Yeah, cool.
So it's not exactly the same thing, but there is a relationship. All right, I think I deserve dinner, Jurgen.
Yep, that's fine. Fine with me. Maybe one last question.
Go ahead.
There was one thing, what does it mean for agile coaching? Will the position as an agile coach survive in the future? That's from Nicole.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As long as you don't see your role as agile coach as someone who brings knowledge, because that is what the machines can do.
Yeah.
And let's face it, too many Scrum Masters and agile coaches in the past have just been the bringers of knowledge. Like this is how story points work, or this is how you might do estimation or whatever. Yeah, that's a thing of the past. So we have to move up the ladder from knowledge to insights and wisdom, and then have a discussion like, what is the wise way to introduce algorithmic management? How do we save the juniors and the interns at this company? Because you're going to need the seniors next year. There's no easy answers to those questions, and that's why you as a coach, I think, come in. And individual solutions can be offered by the AIs, but the context-dependent implementation of what is the wise thing to do in that particular situation, that I think is where the coach plays a role.
Okay, thank you very much. Good. So I've just in the chat I just posted our next event, the third one, and Robert will be a big part of that. And we talk about our first part of agentic AI. We just decided today that we will have multiple sessions about agentic AI, and the next thing we will talk about knowledge management. So how to do with this with agents and generic AI. Hope you sign in. So hope I see you in the future. Thank you, Jurgen, very much.
Thank you too for organizing.
I'll try to find you in Munich when you are here.
Will be nice to see you.
Have a beer or so.
Yep.
And to all the others, thank you for being here. Hope you join us in the future as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Interesting.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.